Good morning. Good morning to you all. Lovely to see you.
Good morning, James.
Thank you for coming along to this very special coffee morning. Those of you who haven't met me before, I'm sure most of you will have, but if I'm a new face, then my name is James Bushnell. I'm the pastor of the church here, Yalding Baptist, and I have tremendous pleasure in inviting these gentlemen to give us a talk on saving lives, a really important thing. And I don't know about you, but I've been on very many first aid courses, and it's really hard to remember the things that you're taught in first aid courses. So it's great to get this refresher for some, and for some of you, this may be new information. There is an air of fear around intervening and helping somebody out of getting it wrong or doing something harmful. I'm sure I'm probably stealing these guys' thunder. But what we can do here is dispel some of that fear and some of those myths. And it's a really important message because what these guys do, and I'm sure these guys have experienced some very tense situations at times. I take my hat off to you if I were wearing one. Is basically, it's bringing people back from the brink, sustaining them and containing them, and then transporting them. And we all have that sense of life is precious, don't we? That life is important, that our life has value. And in a sense, that's a good crossover because that's what we do here every Sunday. We celebrate life. We celebrate the value that life has. And of course, we at the church believe it comes from the one who made us. So I'm very pleased that we have this very strong, practical, visual message here in this place. So thank you for coming. I hope this is very helpful to you, that you'll be able to retain things, and I hope you never have to use it, but it's still good to have that on your minds. So I'm going to hand over to you guys.
Okay. Well, I've not used the mic before, so I'll give it a go. Okay, that point, hear me now. I'm not used to the technical bits, so I normally have to talk very loud. Thanks for coming in, thanks for inviting us. Sam organised this event and invited me along to come along with him and give us some support in running the event today. I think I'll introduce myself, Sam will say a bit about himself, and then we'll crack on if that's okay. Yeah. So my name's Lee, I've driven up from Dover today. I manage the Dover Adult Volunteering Unit and have done for the last 9 years. I joined St John those 9 years ago because I needed to learn some first aid skills to teach it to others in the business I was in. And through my years at St John, I progressed up to ambulance crew. So I volunteer as ambulance crew at St John. But 6 years ago, because of that volunteering, I changed my career totally and joined the NHS. So I'm now on an ambulance with the NHS daily, so I do it as paid, and then when I get home from work, then I go out and do it for nothing. So madly. But what we're doing here today, a couple of years ago, I decided to do an initiative for Dover Deal Sandwich where we would offer, free of charge, CPR defibrillator training, and the take-up was enormous. Everybody wanted to learn it, because it was free, of course. But that's the whole idea. This should not be charged. I mean, in schools it should be taught, as we know. It should be something that everybody learns. So it's been very good. I've been doing it for a couple of years, and Sam gave me a call and said, I've got this one coming up, which might keep coming along. Well, I didn't ask him to come along, but I said,
so glad you offered.
and then Sam will take it from here and in and up this area, because it's a bit far from this drive. Anyway, Sam, you'll get back yourself. Yeah, you're going to have to shout.
I will shout, yeah. I've got my stars in the right mind, actually. Everyone here? Hello, yes, I'm Sam. I live in Medway. I've been in St John for 6 years. I'm the area manager for Medway, so Rochester, the Isle of Sheffield Sittingbourne. Also ambulance crew, so I've been ambulance crew for 3 years. So we deploy on our own ambulances, but to 999 calls with the NHS, supporting NHS England. just sort of started my journey on training with Instant Job. It's the first one of these I've done actually, so I'm really excited. Great to see so many of you here. But I'm so pleased at least come along because I've shown the ropes a little bit. So, but yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it and hopefully you'll take something away from it.
Right, okay. Obviously you've seen that we've got some Annies here. So at some point, if you're willing and you're able to, we're going to be doing some CPR. It doesn't mean getting on your knees, so I appreciate it. If somebody decides that that's not for you, that's absolutely fine. But the takeaway message today is to learn something, and if you see something happening, you know what to do and you can tell someone else how to do it. But the first thing I'm going to do is take you all back to school. Okay? Now, I appreciate this is a fairly small board, so hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm going to do. Now you're probably thinking, why are we doing this? And I promise you, in 5 minutes maybe, the penny will drop and you'll all go, that's why you've done it. Okay, so bear with. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw that. Does that look like anything at all?
Yes. Egg. An egg.
An egg. A big egg. Okay, and if I draw a line through the middle, and then down there, there is a theme today. That's okay, it's not a potato. And David's had enough already. Contrary to belief, it doesn't look like that. Okay, it's the heart. And the top of the heart, believe it or not, is here. So it's the bottom, it's upside down, so the top of the heart is what we call the apex. So this is the heart. My question to you is, what is the heart? What type of organ is the heart?
Muscle.
It's a muscle. It is a pump, absolutely, but it's a muscle, okay? And muscles, what do they need to actually thrive, to work? What do they need? What do they need a supply of continuously? Oxygen via blood, yeah. So although this is a pump, and it delivers blood to the rest of the body, the heart itself needs its own blood supply to be able to operate and work properly, okay? So the blood travels in through what we call the coronary arteries, okay? So that's the blood supply, so we get a nice blood supply. For the heart to work, it has to squeeze, okay? So we've got the top part of the heart that squeezes, and the bottom part. Does anybody know what the top part is called? It is called, apologies if you can't all see this, it is called the atrium. Okay? Or the atrium. And then the bottom part of the heart is called ventricles. Fantastic. Extra cake over there. So the atrium and the ventricles, okay, and the blood supply. So we've got to that bit so far. So if we were to feel our pulse in the wrist or wherever you like to feel it, you can feel that boom, 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 boom. That's what we call lub, lub. So the top part of the atrium go lub, and then the ventricles go lub. So lub, 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 lub. That's continuous, and that does that for us. But what is it that stimulates the heart to squeeze? What stimulates the muscle to move? What do you think makes that muscle squeeze? Any ideas? If you just put your fingers in the socket now, you get the same kind of response.
Electricity.
Electricity. It's an electrical impulse, yeah. So via chemicals, we get a chain reaction of a chemical reaction that goes through our heart. Let's use a blue one. So it starts up here at the top, and our brain gives us the signal. This is our pacemaker, and it sends an electrical signal just about the middle of the heart. Okay, so an electrical signal fires through there and makes the atrium squeeze, and for a brief second it's held, and then it fires right the way down into the ventricles. Okay. So we get an electrical signal fire to there, and we get an electrical signal fire to the bottom of the heart. Okay? And imagine it as some copper wiring around the bottom of the heart. So it's spread around the ventricles. So you get that lub lub. And our heart generally goes around about 60 to 90 beats a minute, okay? Unless we start running around, and then it goes a bit quicker. So that's how it's working, and you may all be familiar with that. Does that look like anything? Yeah. So when we turn up at, let's just say, called an ambulance because he was having chest pain. We turn up with our monitor and we put the sticky dots across your chest, and then we'd have a look at the screen. And what we're looking for is a nice rhythm. So this that we can see is what's going on in your heart. That's the electrical rhythm, and we can see it on the screen. Okay? That's nice. However, there are times when things go a bit pear-shaped or something can go wrong. And that could be due to health, or it can be to as simple as taking a long haul flight, 10, 12 hour flight, sat down for some time, and then a day or so later you get a bit of an ache in the back of your leg. You don't really take much notice of it, it swells and gets a bit hot. And then something can happen, and that's where we get a DVT, or a clot can form. Okay? And a clot can break off, and it can travel up and get into the circulatory system, and it can go many places. It can go to the brain, it can go to the lungs, or it can go to the heart. This is just one reason. So let's just say a clot's travelled up your leg and then gone into your heart, and it comes in via the coronary artery. And the coronary arteries are quite large until they branch off into imagine the branches of a tree, and they get narrower and narrower and narrower, and then a clot might get lodged and get stuck. And that means there's no blood supply getting past that clot to your heart muscle. So the muscle, past that clot, starts to die. And that's that aching, heavy feeling you get, that pain in the chest. That pain is generated from this muscle sending a signal saying, I'm not getting oxygen. And it hurts because it's a muscle. Now usually, when you say if you've got chest pain, we turn up, and then we look at the electrical rhythm. We can see in the electrical rhythm that you've got a problem with your heart. And within 10 minutes, we'll have you on the ambulance, rushing to the nearest cardiac centre. For us down in Kent, I assume it's the same, I'm not sure up here, but we would take to William Harvey where we are. But we rush you in, and within 10 minutes of getting into the hospital doors, you will be on a theatre table, wide awake, anaesthetised, or they numb your wrist or your groin, and they'll go up through your groin, and they'll send a dye into your coronary arteries, and they'll see the clot, and they go in, they'll either disperse or remove the clot, and then they may put a stent. Anybody heard of stents? Some people may even have stents here, but they'll put a stent in your artery so it opens up, and then the oxygenated blood can get back to your heart muscle. And if we can do all that within an hour, 3 hours max, but within the hour, there's a good chance that you have a perfectly healthy heart. Sometimes you're left with an irregular heartbeat, AF, or something like that afterwards. But there are times when we don't get to you quick enough, or you've decided it's indigestion and you've put it off for 3 days. It's just indigestion, you keep taking remedies, and then unfortunately sometimes that person could collapse. It's a bit of an emotive subject, and apologies, but when the heart stops, it arrests, you collapse, and you are dead. It's as simple as that. And there's only one thing we can do for someone whose heart stopped, and that is work their heart for them and pump that heart hard and fast. However, I believe, I don't know if is a defibrillator in the village? 3? Excellent, okay. Even outside of the village now, in most high streets, in shops, in cafes, and on walls, there are defibrillators. Now, when we turn up, we can put the monitor onto your chest and have a look. And remember, we're looking for this rhythm, this normal rhythm. But what we might see, instead of this nice organised rhythm, we'll see this. It looks like a child's got a crayon and scribbled right across the paperwork. So instead of this nice electrical impulse going down through the heart and the heart going low, low, what you've actually got is the top part of the heart squeezes, but the bottom part of the heart every single one of these dots I'm putting on here is an electrical signal. Because of this blockage and this lack of oxygen, it interferes with electrical signals that are sent through the heart. And what happens when this electricity fires off all over the heart, it sends the heart into a quiver. It shakes. So instead of that lub, lub, what you get is a lub and this. So if the heart is doing this, what is it not doing for you? It's not squeezing and it's not pushing the blood out. So that's why when this happens and the blood doesn't come out, you don't get the oxygenated blood to your brain, you collapse and then you die. And you stop breathing very quickly. So this rhythm here, this one you can see, people sometimes call it the Bupa sign. Oh, there's a cake line.
Sorry about that.
That's all right, it's all good. So this is what we call a normal sinus rhythm. Sinus just means where it originates from, the sinus. Okay, so that's a normal rhythm. This rhythm down here, this chaotic squiggle, is called VF. V stands for ventricular. Who can tell me what the F stands for? Failure. What's the back? Fibrillation. Fibrillation. When the heart quivers like this, like jelly, it's called fibrillating. Fibrillating. What are these called?
Defibrillators.
A defibrillator. Good. The penny drop. You're supposed to go, oh. So the idea is, someone who's collapsed and is not breathing, we do need to start chest compressions. That's the most important thing, okay? That's key. Don't delay chest compressions, that's really important. As soon as we can get a defibrillator, that's great. Because once we put the defibrillator onto the patient, we put a pad up here on the, I will demonstrate this, but we put a pad up here, and a pad around here under the armpit. So let's imagine there's a pad here, and one under the armpit. Okay, and when we attach the defibrillator, it will say, analysing the patient. So it's looking, the defibrillator is looking for this electrical rhythm. That's what it's doing. And if it sees this electrical rhythm, this VF, it will say shock advised. And it will say push the orange button. It will say deliver the shock. We will go through all this. And as soon as you hit that orange button, the shock is sent right the way through the heart and back again. And that electrical current stuns the heart. So it's doing this, you hit it with electricity and it stops. With the hope that the heart will then kick back into a normal rhythm. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the heart will go into this rhythm. Flat. It's what we call asystole, but I'm sure a lot of you know it as flat line. Okay? So the heart will get stunned and stop, and it might not start again. It might just sit there. Okay? And that means we've got to carry on doing our CPR. Okay? We just keep doing that. Sometimes we shock the heart, and it still carries on shaking, but we've still got to do the CPR. Okay? Because every 2 minutes, when this defibrillator is attached, every 2 minutes it will wake up, it will tell you to stop, and it will have another look at the electrical rhythm. And if it still sees that nasty squiggly line, it will say shock advised again, and it will shock. And every 2 minutes, that will keep happening. It will either say shock or no shock. So my question to you then If I put the defibrillator pads onto a patient who's collapsed on the floor, who you suspect is not breathing, and it sees this rhythm, what would you think the defibrillator is going to say? Will it say shock or no shock? No shock, absolutely, because they are so safe. You cannot shock a person with a normal heart rhythm. You cannot injure anybody else. If it sees this rhythm, this nasty wiggly line, VF, or ventricular fibrillation, will it say shock or no shock? Shock, yeah. And then we have to make sure nobody's touching the patient when you push that orange button, otherwise you'll end up with 2 casualties, maybe 3. So you make sure nobody's touching, and it will deliver the shock. If I've got the pads on the patient who's not breathing and it sees this one, this flat line, do you think it will say shock or no shock?
Shock.
It's not a test, just what do you think? Let's have hands for shock. Great, and hands for no shock. It's a no shock. Because the flat line, remember the defibrillator is looking for electrical activity. If it sees a flat line, there is nothing happening. That means it can't shock it because there's nothing to fix. It's not working at all. Okay? And this is where I need to dispel the myth. These do not restart the heart. If someone's heart is sitting still and not working, it does not restart the heart. It doesn't shock it into going again. The defibrillator shocks it to stop it fibrillating, not to restart it. Well, that was my little science take-home message for you, just to try and understand what defibrillators do. Okay? So if somebody isn't breathing on the floor, and if they're not breathing, their heart isn't working, and you start CPR and someone attacks the defibrillator and it says no shock advised, don't be surprised. Because it isn't going to restart the heart, it just means the heart hasn't got any electrical signal in it at all. And that's where you need us to come along and cannulate, give some adrenaline and start getting things going. The most important thing is the CPR. And as much as I love the defibrillators, they are great, they're a brilliant bit of kit. If you're on your own and someone collapses, don't run off to get a defibrillator. CPR. CPR. When we get the C1 call, the category 1 call for a cardiac arrest, we should be no more than 8 minutes away. And we're quite rural out here and in the rest of Kent, so there are times when it takes longer than 8 minutes. But if you imagine, if you don't do nothing for 8 minutes and then we turn up, we might get something back in the heart, but the brain has been starved of oxygen for 8 minutes, if not more. So the important thing is the CPR. Keep the blood pumping around the body with the oxygen that's already in the blood. Try and keep the cells alive, keep the brain alive, and we'll do the rest when we get there. That's the important thing. Good. Any questions? No. That's school over. Fantastic. My work here is done.
If it does say no shock, is there any way you can press the orange button or not?
No.
Or does it just not work?
No.
Right.
Super safe. You cannot accidentally shock someone.
Yeah.
You can accidentally shock a bystander or someone helping you when they've got their hands on the chest and you get a bit eager and it says push the orange button and you just go okay without checking everyone's out of the way. You could potentially cause some harm. I mean, I'm not an electrician, so I couldn't convert it into volts for you, but it's 350 joules. It's enough to lift the patient off the floor when you shock them. So if you are touching the patient, that's going to be quite a belt.
Fair jump.
Yeah, it's a fair jump. Yeah. Has anybody done first aid courses? I know you definitely have. First aid, yeah. Right, okay. So when I ask questions, you're going to know exactly what the answer is. You should never put your hands up. Never do it. Okay. There's nothing strenuous about this. I'm going to teach you a bit of CPR, because that's the most important thing. And then I'm going to use a couple of the training defibrillators I've got to show you how to use it. And then we're going to break off into some groups, and Sam's going to take a few groups, and and if you're willing to, we'll do a bit of CPR and go from there. Okay? And if there's time at the end, I'll talk about a child and a baby. Great, okay. Hopefully you'll all be able to see this, and I have to get down on my knees. which is never a good thing. Okay, if it's easier, come round. Okay. So in my years in the ambulance service, I have turned up to patients or scenes where people are doing CPR and the patient is alive and not needing CPR at all. So the most important thing whenever you do anything like this is do your checks properly. And it's not difficult. It is fairly straightforward. And this is where we want to dispel that myth. Don't be frightened of approaching people and checking them. The most important thing to do, that if you do witness somebody collapse or you come across somebody's collapse, is shout for help. Okay, shout for help from the start. Now if I just shouted help, most people will just look away or do this, they can't hear anything. But if I looked at you and I said, I need some help, you're not going to, well, hopefully you're not going to ignore me because I'm looking straight at you. But if you shout help, I'd like to think some people would, good Samaritans, come over and say, what would you like me to do? Now the people who come to help you might not know what to do, but hopefully when you've finished today, you'll be able to instruct people what to do. And what you can do initially, if someone has collapsed and you're really concerned, is shout help and ask someone to call for an ambulance. Because the call taker, the first thing they see, I'm sure you've all seen it on TV, the first thing they'll ask is the patient breathing. Okay, and that's what we need to ascertain. Now you could be out in the park for a walk with your partner, or walking the dog and seeing someone laid down on the bank. They could well be just dozing in the sun. So it's always sensible to go up and ask first. Okay, otherwise there's this law called common assault, and you could find yourself in a problem. So let's just say you've not witnessed it, but you've come across somebody, okay, who's collapsed on the floor. Shout for help. Go up to the person, and if you don't know their name, it's not a problem. But what you're going to do is you're going to get down close to them, and doing both ears, you want to say hello, hello, open your eyes, and you need to give that instruction. Not hello, how are you? Give them an instruction. But whilst you're doing that, simultaneously at the same time, you need to inflict a bit of pain. They do teach you to do it step by step, but trust me, it's easier just to hello, open your eyes. Now, you can do a gentle tap on the shoulders, but if you're not getting any response at all, nothing at all, you need to inflict some pain. There's a reason for that, because if you inflict some pain and someone flinches their arm, they're alive. Yeah, that's the reason for doing it. Now, what we do in the ambulance service, and some first aid courses, they teach you to pinch the earlobe. Have you ever tried to inflict pain on an earlobe? It really doesn't work. Not very well at all. Up here, you've got these traps, trapezial muscles. Any Star Trek fans, nice Spock grip. Okay, in there, get your thumb right in here and give it a good squeeze. Hello, open your eyes. Now, if they're alive, they're going to feel that pain, and they may just brush you off. At that point, you say, okay, I was just checking it was okay. Okay, so you've inflicted some pain. Hello, open your eyes, nothing at all. At this point, if you're not getting any response and you haven't done already, we need to be calling the ambulance. Okay, and if you've got a phone, 999, and they'll ask you, is that patient breathing? You're going to then have a look inside their mouth. Okay, and to do that, we need to tilt that head back. And this is one of the first things we do, so we call it the head tilt chin lift. Okay, hand on the forehead, hand under the chin, or fingers under the chin, and push the head back. And when you do that, that lifts the tongue off the back of the throat and up, and it opens the airway. I'll pass this around, okay, because it's going to be difficult to see. So, in this position, this is the tongue. Our tongue is huge. It is absolutely huge, our tongue. It's not just this bit you see at the front, but it lays back here. This is our airway, and the tongue rests back. When we're completely comatose, not asleep, comatose, the tongue can lay back and block the airway. So by simply lifting the head up, it takes the tongue off of the throat, off of the airway. Okay? You know, just pass it around, but you can have a little play with that. So by doing that, it might be enough for that person to take a breath. It might be enough. So we open up the airway. And then we're going to look, listen and feel. We're going to look down the chest, we're going to listen with our ear, obviously, and then we're going to feel with the side of our cheek, okay? And the way we do that is we tilt the head back and we have a look down the chest. We're looking to see if the chest is rising or falling. We're listening for any breath sounds and we're feeling with the side of our cheek, okay? Now when we do that, sometimes you'll hear this, and that's it. Or a couple of every 10 seconds or so. That is what we call agonal breathing. It's not breathing. And I often get asked, what breathing are we listening for? Breathing. Just what you're doing now. Normal breathing. That's all you're listening for. If you hear a that's just exhausted air in the lungs moving. And it's not breathing. And again, I'll reiterate, if you haven't done already, 999. Speakerphone. And then the first thing I'll say is the patient breathing. And you're going to say no. And then instruct you what to do. So even after today and tomorrow you say, I can't remember what Lee said, don't worry. Because if you call 999, they'll talk you through it, step by step. So at this point, the patient isn't breathing, shout for help again. And if people do come to help you, what you want them to do is either do the chest compressions or get a defibrillator. That's if there's one nearby and you know where it is. The call takers are very good in that when you say the address where you are or the location where they can pinpoint the nearest defibrillators if they are registered, which I'm sure they are, the 3 that are around. Whoever the custodians are, they register them on the circuit. And they'll tell you where they are. And they'll tell you what the code is to get into that defibrillator box. A good question I got asked about that is that you could be, let's just say you're a couple of minutes away from the defibrillator and they say the code is 1972 and you get there and go, oh no, what was that code? You can call 999 again. You can say that you're attending a cardiac arrest that's going on and I need the defibrillator code. So they will give it to you. So if you can't remember it or write it down, don't worry. So that person's gone off to get the defibrillator, you're going to do the chest compressions, okay? And if there is any volunteers near you who don't know what to do, you can say, right, watch me, because I want you to take over. So what we're going to do, what we're going to do is we're going to have to push hard and fast in the middle of the chest. And we need to squash that chest, we need to push that chest deep. Anybody any idea just how deep an adult's chest needs to be squashed? Any ideas? How far do you think you'd need to do it to squash that arm?
Oh, it's good.
So it's 5 to 6 centimetres, or a third of the depth of the chest. So a third, okay? Because that blood, that muscle isn't doing anything, it's filled up with blood, and we've got to squash that sack of blood. It sounds disgusting, but that's what we've got to do. We've got to squash it flat, and then let it fill up again. Squash it flat, let it fill up again, okay? And by doing that, we do that in a nice steady rhythm. We allow the heart to fill up every time and squeeze all that blood out and push it up to the brain and the other organs where it's needed. So we know we're going to go a third of the depth of the chest. How fast do we need to go? How many beats per minute do you think we need to go? So our average heartbeat is 60 to 90 when it does it on its own. How fast do you think we need to push? Any ideas?
Twice every second.
Pretty much 100 to 120 beats a minute. Well, you'll never do 120 because that's 2 a second and you'll be very, very tired. There are some famous songs. I'll put it out there. Anybody remember the songs that we could do it to?
Stay alive.
Stay Alive. Any others? No, well, that's getting back. That's when we used to do it 15 to 2. I can't remember the lyrics though. So Another One Bites the Dust, Staying Alive, Nelly the Elephant. There are some other songs that have come up through the generations, because I mean, a lot of them do know Staying Alive, but now you've got Gangnam Style, Baby Shark. Well, once you get that word in your head, that's it, you've had it. You're doing Baby Shark for the rest of the week. Okay, so we know how fast, we know how deep, now we need to know where to go. So we need to expose the chest for the defibrillator pads as they come. You don't have to expose the chest to do CPR, but it is a good idea to open the clothing if you can. But we do need to keep the patient fairly warm if we're outside. Okay, so at the start, just get on and if they've got a big duffel coat on, for instance, you might want to open the jacket so you can get closer to the chest. Where do we go? Right, so imagine a line from armpit to armpit. We used to say in line with the nipples, but trust me, that could be anywhere. So armpit to armpit, straight across, okay? And then right in the middle of the chest, the sternum, okay? A question I often get asked, and a few people have said they've been told that if I don't break a rib, I'm not doing it hard enough. That's not true. It's not true. You don't aim to break ribs, but it might happen whilst you're doing chest compressions, okay? You will definitely break the cartilage on the sternum. It's all cartilage that holds the ribs together here. I can tell you from experience that it's not nice, but it gives way. Once it gives way, it's much easier. Chest compressions on these Annies is much harder than doing it on a person, because there's no give on a plastic dummy, whereas on a real person it does eventually give. Okay, so heel of the hand. Don't go right next to the patient. You come back at 4 or 5 centimetres or 5 or 6 inches. Heel of the hand right in the middle. If you can interlock your fingers, then great, but if that's uncomfortable, don't worry, just put one hand on top of the other. The idea is you keep your arms straight and your elbows locked. Don't bend your arms, because that's doing upside down press ups and that's very tiring. You're going to be using your shoulders and your back to do the work, not your arms. Your arms are just the pistons, okay? So you don't have to have big muscly arms to do CPR, it's all in the back. And you're going to rock, unfortunately, rock on your knees. I've got a nice pad in here. Anyway, so what we're going to do. So we're going to push down 1/3 of the depth. So we've got a useful click. I don't really want to see another one bites the dust, but you get the gist. So dun, dun, dun. Another one bites the dust. That's the idea of the song. It's not fast and it's not too slow. And the idea is when you squash that heart flat, you come back up and let the heart fill up. If you go fast, you're not letting the heart fill up with blood, and you're really getting yourself very tired, and half the effort is going into that heart. So nice steady rhythm. And you can easily say, if a bystander comes over, watch what I'm doing, would you mind helping, or please help? They can kneel beside you, and then what should happen, no more than 2 minutes, you stop and the other person takes over. You will always get one superhero who will say, no, I can carry on, I'm all right. That's where you have to be insistent and say, no, I'm going to take over. It's proven scientifically that after 2 minutes you start to tire and you're not as effective. You think you are, but you're not. Okay, so it's important that we swap and we swap. And if you're not the person that can get down on your knees, but you know what has to happen, you can easily stand back and tell someone how to do this. We don't do breaths. Okay? Don't do breaths. There is a new advert about to come out with Vinnie Jones again. I don't know if you saw the old Vinnie Jones one, Harlem, France, straight in the medallion. The idea of TV adverts is to keep it simple, and the idea of this training is to keep it simple. If we start adding breaths in, it complicates it, but the most important thing is that the time it takes for you to mess around doing breaths, you're not doing chest compressions. If you think about the heart and the circulatory system, it's a bit like central heating at home, it's all pressurised. And as you pump that chest, you build the pressure up, so the brain starts getting oxygenated blood. If you come off that chest, what happens to that pressure? It drops, and it's very hard to get that back, and you do more damage than you do good. Okay, so the important thing is the chest compressions. There's enough oxygenated blood within the system to keep that perfused. Okay? The only time I would ever consider giving breaths to anybody would be a loved one of my own or children. Okay? I will demonstrate it just so that you know how to do it, but the advice to you and the call taker on the other end of 999 will tell you chest compressions, and they'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and they'll keep you doing it. They will not tell you to do breaths. Okay? If I was going to do breaths, however, what we tend to do is we count to 30, so we'll say 28, 29, 30. What's the important thing I need to do with the head to be able to get air in? Tilt it back, otherwise no air's going to go in. And this is where you can lose time. So we tilt it back, we pinch the nose, and we're going to seal arm out around theirs. Okay? And all we're looking to do is blow enough air in to see the chest go up and down. Okay? Not take a big lungful and try to inflate them like a barrage balloon, because that's not what we want. Okay? It's very simple. Head back. 2 breaths. And that's it. And then back on the chest. The important thing is you do the chest compressions. I'm showing you it so you know, but the important thing is just stay on that chest. But you might decide it's a loved one or a relative and I'm going to do breaths. Well, if you're that insistent, you've got to do it properly. If you try 2 breaths and it doesn't work, don't try and do more breaths. You have 2 attempts and you go back to the chest. The important thing is staying on here, on the chest. Great. That's the CPR. Any questions at the moment on CPR? And I'll show you the defibrillator.
Does do chest compressions encourage oxygen in any way because you're pushing?
Very small amount. Yeah, it does draw oxygen in. Good question. So by doing the chest compressions, you change the pressure within the chest, and it draws air in. That's how we breathe. There are pressure changes. So you, by doing the chest compressions, can draw a small amount, not a huge amount, but can draw air in. Good question. Yeah, absolutely. Right. That's the training one. So what I've brought along today are 2 of our defibs. I think, Sam, did you say this is what's actually in?
That's the one that's in the automatic finish.
Oh, okay, well that's handy, isn't it? So the one I got from St John is the same as what's in the box in the 3 that are in the village. And this is another one. And the only reason I brought 2 along is to just show you the differences. So there's one, nice compact. And I will pass this around, okay? You can't shock anybody with it. But what you'll notice is there are only 2 buttons. There's an on button and an orange shock button, okay? That's this one. Now, incidentally, this one, the defibrillator pads are stored in the back, and it will tell you to pull the green tag. You pull it out, and the pads are already attached. Okay? I'm just going to give that one to pass around, and I'm just going to talk about this one. This is the one that's in the village. So the pads are already plugged in, they're inside this sealed packet, you just rip the packet open. And this one is probably a more expensive model than the one that's coming around, in that it's got lots of pictures, okay? And it's got a monitor screen. And when I turn it on, I'll turn this one off. Yeah, there's an on button and it will switch on, but it won't do anything. I mean, I'm glad you did it, really. It won't do anything. It's telling you to call for an ambulance and it's telling you to check the breathing. And I'll start this one off. So that's the give them a shake, shout in the ears. Open the airway. Tilt the head back, open the airway. Check breathing. So you're listening and feeling for breathing.
What's that?
Attach defibrillation pads to patient's bare chest. So at this point, it won't go any further. It will just keep telling you to attach the pads. It won't go to the next step because it wants you to attach the pads. Let's just turn it off. Attach defibrillation. It wants you to attach the pads so it can look for that rhythm. Okay? So Again, quite past it. This one's a bit heavier, okay, so don't drop it. Have a good look. You can see the pads. So while this is coming around, I'll just go through some of the bits that are in here before we put the pads onto the patient. So inside the kit, and hopefully inside your defibrillator boxes, it says, so in the back of this one, I have a pair of scissors, I have some tissue, it's just what they're gloves, they look like gloves, a little bit of tissue. We do have a rebreathe mask, I won't talk about that too much because you won't have that in your box. But a razor, they're the three things you should have in a defibrillator box. So if anyone's a custodian of the defibrillator, these are the things you should have in there. Now for a defibrillator pad to be attached to the patient, it needs to be to the bare chest. It needs to be to skin, okay? So we have some scissors, okay? It's not undressing the patient, this is quick, okay? If it's a buttoned shirt, you just rip it open, okay? Any clothes you need to get rid of, just cut down the sleeves, cut down the middle and expose the chest, okay? Now, bear in mind it might be outside, but we need to do this, okay? So we expose the chest. Now, there may be, obviously depending on, not strictly just limited to females, but we do have bras on patients. And we need to remove that bra. Any idea why we need to remove the bra?
Metal. It's
got metal, yeah, it's a conductive metal. It's in the way anyway, but it's got a metal underwire usually across the chest. Obviously, if we're going to deliver electrical shock through, we don't want any metal on the chest at all. Okay? Usually the metal isn't joined in the middle, so you can cut the middle. If it is there, cut the bra strap to pull it down. Just make sure from the chest to the head is clear. Just move it all out of the way. Okay, but usually you can cut the bra and remove it. So if we're thinking about metal, what other objects on the chest why we need to move out of the way? Jewellery, pendants, necklaces, anything like that. So if there's a necklace, just drop it over the neck out of the way. You don't need to fiddle around trying to undo it, as long as it's just not on the chest. If there are nipple piercings, don't worry about that, leave them where they are. Okay, we're going to try and take them out, we're going to cut them out, we're going to pull them out, and I'm certainly not going to mess around trying to take nipple piercings out. Okay, so that's metal objects, pendants, we move that out of the way. What else might be on the chest that we need to get rid of? Hair. So we've got a razor. Okay, this is not a nice wet shave in the mirror decision. This is literally ripping the hair off the chest. Okay, an excessively hairy chest. So if you take the razor off, where we're going to put the pads, I'll show you where we put the pads, but you're going to remove the hair from the chest. Okay, it doesn't need to be neat and tidy, just get the hair. Does anyone have, any gents had ECGs, dots across the chest, and had to have their chest shaved? So when we go to patients, if you've got a hairy chest, I have to shave a line across the left breast and up the middle, so it's you've got this L shape shaved off. And I don't use shaving foam, I just get the razor out and take it off. Because it has to be down to bare skin. Also, I mean, these are swabs, you're not going to get a lot done with that. You can use their clothing or anything just to wipe the chest as dry as you can. Okay? Just as much as you can. Other things we need to look for are pacemakers. Pacemakers are usually, if you are wearing a pacemaker, usually under the skin and on the left side, just above the heart, so that's fine, it's not in the way. It's very rare they're on the right. And what we're saying is you don't put pads usually over the top of a pacemaker. But in all fairness, the pacemaker's not doing its job. It's likely failed and not working. Patches are the other ones. Any patches, people wear pain patches, nicotine patches, all sorts of patches. Where we're going to put the defibrillator pad, if there's a patch, a medical patch, take the patch off, just move it out of the way, because it might be in just where we're going. And the only reason we say that, is anyone familiar with the drug called GTN? Has anybody got GTN? It's a spray under your tongue for a heart condition. Sometimes people have medical patches you're going to pull out. GTN is sometimes can be in the form of a medical patch, and if it is on the skin and you put an electrical shock through it, it will burn the skin. So not nice. So any patch, anything that's in the way, just remove it. Okay. Right. So we shaped the chest, we made it all clear, and now we're going to attach defibrillator pads. All while I'm doing this, someone is doing chest compressions. Okay? We don't stop chest compressions. So if someone brings a defibrillator over to you, they bring the defibrillator, you're already tired. Okay, so you say to that person, right, I need to take over the chest for me. So the other person gets down on the other side, they start doing the chest compressions, and then you take the defibrillator. Now this is a training one, we've got a couple of them. You can't shock anybody with these. The most important thing with defibrillators, as we've seen it's come around, it's got an on button, as we found. Turn it on.
Place the electrodes on chest and plug into machine.
Now this is telling me to plug it into the machine because it's a training one, it's not already plugged in. Whereas the live ones, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, it's already plugged in. So if someone is doing chest compressions, now there are pictures on the pads.
Place the electrodes on chest and plug into machine.
We'll take photos of the pads out and have a look. There's a set of pads going to come around to you to have a look at. The pictures are on the pads telling you where to put them. Okay? So this one's telling me to do that one there.
Place the electrodes on chest and plug into machine.
And this one is showing me to go right up under the left arm. Yeah, up here. Plug it into the machine. So now it's telling me not to touch the patient because it's looking for that electrical rhythm. This is the only time we don't touch. So it's charging.
Stand clear of patient, press orange button.
Right, so now we've got the orange button. Okay? Now you could have someone doing the chest compressions. At this point, it's really important that you look and say, everybody clear. Then you shock the patient, so you push that orange button. And the shock will be delivered instantly. The important thing is to get straight back on the chest. Do not stop. Doesn't matter what the defibrillator says at this point, do not stop chest compressions. Okay? And what will happen, some defibrillators say check airway, check breathing, check pulse. I promise you, and every other ambulance person will say the same, you need to go back on the chest. If we shock the heart and the heart starts going back into a normal rhythm, it will take a good couple of minutes before it gets anywhere near doing what it needs to do. You still need to do that chest compression, okay? So we're going to carry on doing it. If the defibrillator says no shock advised, you may decide, I don't know if that patient's alive, and it's perfectly acceptable to you very quickly to check to see if they're breathing. And it's that simple thing again. Check to see if they're breathing. We do that for no more than 10 seconds. Okay? I can only say to you, and unless you've seen it, it's very obvious when someone's not breathing. They'll be very grey, ashen colour, not even blue, they've gone beyond that, they'll be very ashen and grey, and the chest will not be moving. And you need to get straight back on that chest. Even if the defibrillator says no shock advised, the only time you're going to stop doing CPR is what? What reason would you stop doing CPR?
So the ambulance.
So the ambulance crew, so I turn up my ambulance, I'm not going to tell you to stop CPR. You're doing a very good job. I've got lots of kit I can get out and get set up. We'll confirm they're dead, but we'll say, carry on doing what you're doing, that's great, and we'll get all our kit out and then we'll take over. So don't be surprised if ever you're doing CPR thinking, oh, they're here now, I can stop. Because 9 times out of 10 we'll get you to carry on because you're helping us. We have got 2 ambulances coming, and if we arrive at the same time, that's a bonus, but that's rare. But you're quite right, the ambulance service say stop what you're doing, then you stop. Any other reasons?
They start breathing.
They start breathing, yeah, absolutely. It's very rare they say get off, But when someone does come back, it's a great sight to see. But that grey colour, I can only liken it to when a baby's born. When a baby's born, they're born blue. They come out blue and they very gradually get pinker and pinker as they start breathing for themselves. And it's exactly the same as someone who's been in cardiac arrest. The colour starts to come back. You'll see them going pink, and you'll see the veins in the neck all gorge. They will pulse so heavily. It's one of those things, you have to see it to believe it. But it will be obvious, and they will be gasping for breath. Okay, so you may decide to stop because all of a sudden they are taking breaths. And what's the other reason, which is very rare, and unlikely to happen? Sorry?
The doctor tells you.
No, doctors don't. No. Any other reason? You're on your own, and you have been for 20 minutes.
You physically can't do it.
Physically can't do it. Yeah, and it's very rare it happens, but potentially you just can't do it anymore. It's hard work. It's hard work. Okay, so you're going to be keeping doing that, and every 2 minutes the machine will come back to life, and it will say stop. Analysing. It's analysing the patient, so that's when you stop. That is your key to swap over. So if you're doing CPR together, and the machine comes back after 2 minutes, the other person then takes over. So the AED is not just a great device to shock the heart, but it's there with you. It instructs you what to do. It's always there. It's a bizarre thing to say you've got a companion that every 2 minutes will reassure you that it's checking the patient. Everybody happy? Any questions on the defibrillator?
In reality, outside of work, how many times have you done that within St John?
St John, never. I've never had to do this in St John, but in my paid job, yeah, quite a few times. Quite a few times. The most irritating thing for me, or the sad thing, is just the lack of training and the lack of confidence in the public, and that's why we're doing this. Because I have turned up to many arrests where the patient's been led there for 10 minutes or so, with nothing being done at all. And we'll do our absolute best, and then sadly we have to give the family that horrible message that there's nothing more we can do. And that's not the family's fault. Don't take that's not a takeaway, it's not their fault at all. But this is the reality, the harsh reality, that if everybody's taught how to do basic life support, it just gives them that extra chance of survival. For every minute that a defibrillator isn't used, the chance of survival goes down by 10%. So 10 minutes without a defibrillator, the likelihood of survival is very slim. But good effective CPR takes that, takes the curve up. The chance of survival is much better. And it's not so much just survival, it's the quality of life after being brought back. So if you can do effective CPR and keep that oxygen going around the brain, you'll keep the brain cells alive. However, without that, we can get, and it does happen, you get people back, but their quality of life afterwards, a fit active person could be bedbound, having to be fed, all that horrible stuff. So quality afterwards. And in the UK, survival rates are very poor anyway. There are approximately 70,000 out of hospital cardiac arrests a year. Less than 10% survive. Less than 10%. And then the quality of life is even less than that afterwards. So, and then the campaign that St John runs, so there's this Save Life September, then there's the British Heart Foundation do one in October. So we continuously try to put the message out. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring out a few of the Annies, and then we're going to split up into some groups, and hopefully some of you will take part. Does that sound like a plan? Excellent, fantastic.
We officially have 15 minutes left, which isn't long, but if people want to stay longer and have a go and you're not rushing off, then you don't have to stop at 12, just so you know.
Literally take 10 minutes. 10 minutes of this and that's it.